Okay, now we know the chat is on. I just want to make sure that the the sound system is working okay. Everybody can hear me now. Sound is okay. If you have any problems, just raise your hands. If you can hear me, then that's okay. Let's go on to where we stopped off. Now, the last time we were here, we were dealing with chapter 5, which is lexical relations. So I'm just going to go ahead and load the content for lexical relations so we can start looking at the different things that still need to be discussed. So we said initially that there are two approaches, and we looked at the first approach, which is semantic field theory. We looked at the lexical fields, and we looked at kinship, where we said that father, mother, sisters are all predicates, and it's a kinship relationship. And we can do also a semantic analysis, and we could said that there are 4 features: parent, offspring, sibling, spouse. And using these 2 features plus male and female, we can describe any kinship relationship. We also started with what is called truth conditional semantics. We looked at hyponyms. And we looked at the last thing that we looked at, we were looking at the truth relations of hyponymy. Remember, this is the truth table of hyponymy relations. And we said that by hyponymy is a part-whole relationship, a part of a whole. A hand is part of an arm, right? Part-whole. A cat is part of an animal. So when we have a part-whole relationship between 2 sentences, remember this is the restriction. The relationship between 2 sentences, A and B, that differ only in that A contains a hyponym and the other one contains a superordinate term. Now, the superordinate term we said is the larger one, the cat, for example, the animal, for example, and the hyponym is the small cat that you see over here. So when you have 2 sentences, A and B, that are similar in all ways, except that one has its hyponym and one contains a superordinate, this is the truth table. And, you know, the best way to remember the truth table is to have a sentence in front of you so you can remember. So you can just remember there are flowers or there are tulips. In the garden, and the same sentence again, but instead of there are tulips, you're going to say there are flowers. Because this is the hyponym, and this is the superordinate term. This is sentence A, and this is sentence B. And that's the truth table for these type of sentences. And we said the truth table, this line is always true, and this line is always false. So we say, if it's true that there are tulips in the garden, which is A, is it also true that there are flowers? And we say yes, because if there are tulips, there has to be flowers. And then we look at B. Now it's not A, then to look at B. And we say, if it's true that there are tulips in the garden, if it's true that there are flowers in the garden, is it also true that there are tulips? And we said that we don't know. It could be true, could be false. So that's why we put a question mark over here. And then we start with this line that says it's false. So if A is not true, it's false. There are no tulips in the garden. Is it also not true that there are flowers? And you have to say, I don't know, because there could be flowers. other flowers like roses or daffodils or something else. What if I deny the truth of B? This is B, there are flowers. I say no, there are no flowers. Absolutely no flowers. Can we say that there are tulips? And obviously we can't, because if you deny B, you're going to deny A as well. And we also said, instead of putting it into table format, we can put it in terms of this arrow, which is called the entailment. If A is true, therefore B is true. And the falsity is this one. This is the false notation. So if A is false, therefore the arrow, I don't know. If B is true, the arrow, then I also don't know. So if B is true, then therefore I also don't know. What about B is false? Well, if B is false like this one, then A is also false. So these two represent really this one over here. If B is false, A is also false. It's just another way of writing it. You have to know both ways. In an exam, I can tell you, provide a truth table for hyponymy. You'll have to write down the truth table. Now, if we join these two sentences with and, you want to join them together with and you can say, for example, this is a tulip and a flower. Remember, we have a hypernym and the superordinate. This it's in between quotes because quotation marks because you can, or brackets because you can delete it in the grammar. It doesn't have to be included. You know it's there, but we delete it and we can say this is a tulip and flower, or tulip and a flower. What do we do when we take these two sentences, A and B, and join them with a flower, with and? We create what is called as a redundant sentence. And another word for redundant sentence is tautology. Tautology. So what is tautology? A tautology is a sentence that just means the same thing. It's redundant because it doesn't express anything new. A redundant sentence means a sentence that just repeats what you just said. So any sentence that with two predications, because obviously this is predication 1 and this is predication 2. There are two prepositions in this sentence, that this is a tulip and that this is a flower. But we join them with and. So in a sentence that has two predications and one entails the other, if we combine these two sentences and have them differ in polarity, then you don't create a redundant sentence. What does that mean? Polarity means the negative and positive pole. So this is a tulip, but this is not. We add polarity. What happens? If you just say and, this is a tulip and a flower, you create a tautology. A redundant sentence, which means the same thing. You didn't say anything new when you say this is a tulip and this is a flower. If I say this is a cat and this is an animal, why do you have to say this is an animal? Just say this is a cat. If you add the animal, you're doing something extra and it becomes redundant. Abathiyya, right? It doesn't mean anything. But if you take these two simple sentences and join them with polarity, have them differ in polarity, if you say this is a tulip but not a flower, the result is what? The result is a contradiction. A contradiction is two predications that one denies the other. That's what is called a contradiction. Two predications, two predicates, but one denies the other. So if you say this is a tulip but not a flower, you're creating a problem, because if it's a tulip, it has to be a flower. If you say this is a cat, but it's not an animal, you're creating a contradiction, because you're saying one is true but denying it also at the same time. So sometimes we can find four hypernyms without a superordinate term. Remember we said that sometimes there's a gap. There it is. It's a lexical gap in the verbs. There are two hypernyms over here, but we can't find a superordinate term for them. And we give you an example. Let's say move, okay? And that's a superordinate term. You can move by flying. You can move by swimming. When you fly, it has to be plus air. You're flying in the air, right? When you're swimming, it has to be plus water, some kind of liquid. right? Water or liquid. Because you move, but you move in water. And in fly, you fly, but you fly plus the air. What about the third type of movement, which is going by, in the ground, not moving in the air or not moving in the water? You're really just moving on the ground, on land. So we just need something that has plus regular land over here. But the problem is we don't have this superordinate word like swim and fly. We have various cohyponyms. You can run, you can walk, you can crawl, you can trot, you can creep, various types of walking on the ground. But we don't have a superordinate word for moving on the ground. And so in this case, we say that there's some kind of lexical gap because there's no one word that describes these various cohyponyms. Now we finish with, remember, we said there are three types of relationships that we're going to look at. Entailment and synonymy or paraphrase and contradiction. We finish with entailment. And entailment and hyponymy are the same thing. Because to be an entailment sentence, you have to have a superordinate and a hyponym. Now we're moving with the second type of relationship. And remember, if you go back to our introduction, we said that in truth semantics, we're going to look at only three types of relationships between sentences. Now remember that in semantic field theory, we're looking at the relationship between lexemes or words. In truth conditional semantics, we're looking at the relationship between sentences. Sentences like, this is a tulip, this is a flower. Now, that was an entailment. This is a tulip, this is a flower is an entailment because tulip is a hyponym and flower is a superordinate term. What is the second type of relationship? Well, the second deals with what we call synonymy, which is the sameness of meaning. So if you say Jack is a seaman, and if you say Jack is a sailor, both of these sentences are the same. They're synonymous. Why? Because seaman and tailor are synonyms. And when you use seaman and sailor in the same predication, the same referring expression, Jack, Jack, and the same predication, they have the same truth value. Both of them are true. And if these two sentences are the same, they are called paraphrases. So yes, seaman and sailor are synonyms, and when you put them in a sentence with the same referring expression and the same predication or predicate, you create paraphrases. So two sentences that mean the same thing are really paraphrases of each other. Now, synonyms or sameness of meaning can be between nouns or adjectives. Sorry about that. They could be between adjectives or adverbs or verbs. So adjectives like large and big, these are synonyms. Verbs like left and department are the same, and departed are the same. Fast and rapidly, which are adverbs, are also the same. So this sameness of meaning doesn't only have to be between a noun. It could be a noun, a verb, an adjective, or an adverb. So what about the truth relationship in the table? Remember, we talked about the truth table of hyponymy. Well, now we know that when we look at synonymy, the truth table is very simple. It's true, true, false, false. There's nothing else. If one is true, the other one is true, and if one is false, the other one is false. So the synonymy truth table is very simple. It's not like hyponymy where we have two of them, four. No, now we only have two, and if one is true, the other one is true. If one is false, the other one is false. How can we put it in another notation? We can say if A is true, B is true. Or you change it around. If B is true, A is true. Remember that in our hyponymy, we couldn't do this. If A was true and B was true, we couldn't start with B and say that it's true. We couldn't say that this is a flower entails this is a tulip, because it doesn't have to be a tulip, it could be anything else. So the problem with hyponymy is that we couldn't say A equals B and B equals A. We couldn't do that. In a synonymy, we can. So if A is true, B is true. And if B is true, A is also true. And if A is false, you know, this is the falsity. B is also false. And if B is false, A is also. So it's the exact sameness of relationship. Now, this is why we call it mutual entailment. So although it's a synonym, and we call it paraphrase, but we regard synonym as a special type of entailment. They're a tale of mutual. Now, what does mutual mean? Mutual means both ways, reciprocal. It means this way and that way, mutual. If I say the love between you and me is mutual, يعني حبنا لبعض نفسه, يعني it's reciprocal. It goes in two ways. متبادل. كلمة ثانية لmutual اللي هي متبادلة. علاقة متبادلة. So synonymy is what we call mutual entailment. It's an entailment, but not any kind of entailment. It's a mutual entailment. And the synonyms, we also think of them as mutual hyponyms. So we say, how can you say a synonym is a hyponym? I thought a synonym was different from a hyponym. A hyponym means a part whole, and synonym means they're two equals. Well, we're saying it's a special type of hyponymy, and we call it a mutual hyponymy, because it works both ways. What does that mean? Well, look, if we say large is a hyponym of big, then big is a hyponym of large. Because large can be thought of not only as a synonym of big, but also part of big. So part of the meaning large is big. Okay, so that's why we say that synonymy is a special type of hyponymy called a mutual hyponymy, because it works both ways. If large is a hyponym of big, then big is a hyponym of large. Now, if we join these two sentences and we say the rock is large and it is big, look what happens. Now we have large and big. You joined it with and. What are you doing? You're still creating a tautology. Exactly like the hyponyms. Because you didn't say anything new. If the rock is large, why are you also telling me that it's big? It's a tautology, a redundant sentence. You didn't give me anything new. So, جملة عبثية. ما لها أي معنى. It's just added words. Now, if we combine large and big, but have them differ in polarity, and remember what polarity is. Polarity is the scale of affirmative and negative. Whether something is yes, not, or without not. So if you say the train traveled fast, but it did not travel rapidly, then the result is also a contradiction. Because if it traveled fast, it also traveled rapidly. You can't add not with synonyms. If you add not with synonyms, with two paraphrases, you're going to create a contradiction. But we're going to have to watch out that synonymy is not a simple matter. Because two lexemes can never have the exact same range of meaning or the same sense. They have to be a little bit different. It can't be exactly the same range of occurrences in a syntactic sentence. So postman and mailman are the same. Lift is elevator in England. Elevator is lift in America. Chips and fries. Chips is used in England for fries, and fries are used for chips in England. So they're different in terms of dialect, كلهجة. Okay, so they do have a difference in meaning. What about